Hi, our press reviewer, Diptyque Laurent. Hi, Dipty.
Hi, Haxi.
The outrage very much palpable in the international press today after that Israeli airstrike that killed some 45 people, injuring many others in the southern Gazan city of Rafa.
That's right. Flames, ashes and death. That's how Arab News, the Saudi newspaper, describes it on its front page. Israel's quote-unquote safe refuge for Palestinians, a rather indignant headline from the Saudi paper, which also condemns the barbaric attack and cites similar outrage from other countries in the region, but also France, for instance. Let me also cast the spotlight for a minute on the front page of L'Orient le Jour, that's a Lebanese French language paper, focusing, as you can see there, on the international outcry after this airstrike on this Rafa refugee camp. But in the editorial, just here on the left here, it's a very interesting editorial where the paper explains its attitudes and how its attitudes have changed between October 7th, after that attack led by Hamas on Israelis, and the ensuing Israeli counter-attack. The paper asks how many more attacks should Palestinians suffer before the international community stands up with one voice to demand an end to the war, while also explaining that it's becoming harder and harder for it to really take one side or the other, or to remain neutral in this conflict as the conflict continues. Here in France, L'Humanité, the French communist paper, evokes here a massacre in Rafah, and also its anger at what it sees as Israel's impunity. How long will Israel go unsanctioned for what it's doing to civilians in Gaza, the paper asks. Il Manifesto, another European daily from Italy, goes with a headline, "In front of your eyes." The paper says, going with that picture there of the aftermath in the refugee camp. And finally, you have also The National, that's a Scottish daily, going with this headline here, "Burned alive, horror as Israel kills 45 in refugee camp strike." On the bottom there, the paper also reiterating the Scottish acting First Minister's demand to Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer for the immediate recognition of a Palestinian state.
What then, Dipty, of the reaction in the Israeli press today?
Well, a similar outrage from Haaretz, but let me get to that in a minute. I want to show you the Jerusalem Post. Now, this, of course, is a conservative Israeli daily. As you see there, they are focusing also on that strike that killed 45 people. The paper also relaying Benjamin Netanyahu's message that the Rafah incident was a tragic accident, but that he also reaffirmed his commitment to the war in Hamas. And you see there the paper also focusing on growing tensions between Israel and Egypt in the middle there of its front page. Haaretz, the center-left paper that tends to be rather critical of Benjamin Netanyahu and his administration, wonders if right-wing press today are celebrating Palestinian deaths in Rafah. Is this the true face of Israel, it wonders. The paper also calls the deaths, quote, unfortunate and regrettable collateral damage, really expressing their outrage as well at what happened.
Dipty, Rishi Sunak, meanwhile, the UK Prime Minister, he's been putting out all the stops on the campaign trail ahead of July's general election in the UK.
That's right. He's on the front page of a lot of the British papers. Here it is on the front page of The Independent today. The Prime Minister proposed tax cuts for millions of pensioners in his latest campaign pledge. It appears, though, that after years of Tory governance, Brits are simply over it. Polls indicate that Keir Starmer, his Labour rival, is far more popular. The Independent explaining here that when it comes to the personality contest, well, Keir Starmer wins hands down. Voters prefer him as someone they'd go to the pub with or lend money to, always important things to look for in your national leader. They also find him smarter than Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak has also been ridiculed for some of his campaign photos that have been released. Let's show you a couple of them. This one here in front of a crane, but unfortunately the crane was positioned right behind his head, so it looked like the crane was coming out of his head. Twitter, never one to disappoint, to this user saying here that Rishi has been fitted with a crane to see if he can pick up some votes. So nice play on words there. This rather staged picture in front of inside an aircraft there also is quite unfortunate because you see the exit going in both directions, many wondering if that is indeed a metaphor for his campaign and perhaps his political future. Haxin.
Well, the stars duty didn't seem to align either for Rafael Nadal at the French Open yesterday. The 14-time champion out in the very first round.
Yeah, he lost to Alexander Zverev, but of course the match was also overshadowed by all the speculation about whether this is indeed his swan song, if this is his last appearance at the French Open. How do you say adios, l'équipe, the French paper says? How do you say goodbye? A similar headline from LAS, Spanish Sports Daily, which calls it the long goodbye, even though Rafael Nadal himself said he's not sure if it is his last appearance. The papers, this paper at least here, still dedicating a rather long retrospective to his illustrious career.
And finally, from you, Deepti, it's not